Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Red Tech Live. And today we're talking about the Red Control Pro app. This thing is amazing. It's loaded with great features. It's definitely an upgrade from the free app. But that doesn't mean that the free app's going away. This is just taking full advantage of larger screens and more processing power. And it's only $4.99. That's a one-off charge. It's not a subscription rate. But I'm really excited to dig into these features. And we've got Mikael, the creator of the app, with us today, and Johnny Pets. And we're going to dig right in. And Mikael, why don't you tell us a little bit about the history behind this?
Yeah, I don't want to drag it too long, but for those who never heard the story, I mean, I'm a Red user. I was shooting on the Red one originally, and was making documentary with my father. We lived in France, and we had this Red camera, which was amazing, but there was no workflow and stuff. So I started like doing my own script to be able to move from one app to another. Then I did another script, another app, and at some point I did an app called Full Cat that was making PDF catalogs of all the footage with the small thumbnails and stuff, and a famous DIT called Gino, which had one of the very first Red camera, I think number 31, showed it to Jared one day on set, and Jared thought I was a programmer or something, and he wanted to have like a new developers work on the SDK that they were going to announce at NAB that year in 2014. So he invited me, sent me an email, sent me the SDK, invited me, thinking maybe I had a software company or something, which was really not the case. And so I had this cable in my drawer to be able to connect the camera to my computer by Ethernet. And I took my small Scarlett and told everyone like I won't be available for the next 2 months or something. And I just started like taking all those parameters and fitting them into a UI. And since I was a user and not like an engineer or a computer scientist, it was easy for me to know which one I wanted large and which one I wanted to not use right now. So I made a UI and then showed it at NAB. And then from there, here we are like 8 years after, still doing like crazy apps. And I had no idea it would
Amazing.
brought me there at all.
Yeah. 8 years of like amazing apps that I'm just so excited to use all the time. It's such a treat to get this level of functionality out of a simple app to interface with the camera. Amazing job.
Yeah, which I guess leads us quite nicely onto, I guess, Mikael, if you want to give us just a nice high-level overview of what people can expect from Red Control Pro, and then we can get started and have a look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, as Cleigh said, the free app that everybody knows and uses, the Red Control app for iPhone and Android, is here to stay. We'll continue to update it, and there's actually an update going today that with a new feature that we'll talk about later on. But the Pro app was the idea with the Pro app was to go just beyond this iPhone mobile app and be able to use the larger screen of iPads and Macs, and be able to also not just scale the UI but offer more buttons and more controls and more camera at the same time, and be able to do more with that screen real estate. And the second direction was to be able to also connect multiple cameras at the same time to the app and be able to control them simultaneously, either individually or as an array or group of camera for people who are doing 360 and all kinds of stereo rigs, or even just like linking specific parameters on set. So that was the second axis, to be able to have multiple camera and connected at the same time and be able to interact with those camera. And the third direction was to be able to add advanced feature for GITs and like FTP file transfer and color grading, and being able to do much more than what we could do with the small iPhone app. So the app has been in beta for a while, so you've seen some images of people that have been using it already on set for their project around the world, like in helicopters or on cars, like 360 rigs, and there's been like crazy people using the app already.
And so that it's a coming available now, but if you have the beta, it's still going to be usable for a little bit as you transition over, and hopefully you pre-order it so you can keep using this amazing software, right? When is that transition point when the beta actually closes down?
Yeah, I think the beta will close tomorrow, and the app is available, has been available for a week as a pre-order, but it has been released today, so you can download it from the App Store. And whenever you buy it on the iPad or on the Mac, it will work on both. So if you download it on the iPad initially and you want to install on your Mac, it's very easy to. It's the same license that gets you both apps.
Awesome. Johnny, do you want to run us through like some of the basic features, like kind of start breaking down how we actually interact with this thing?
Awesome. Yeah. No, yeah. Super excited too. So I'll just kind of give a bit of an intro to using the UI, how it kind of differs to Red Control, and then we'll hand over to Mikael for some of these more advanced features. So this is kind of your connection panel, where, like you will remember from Red Control, you will see all of the connected devices. So I've got 2 cameras here that are connected that I can connect to. I've got a connection drop down over here. So basically, I can tell the app to keep refreshing the connection to check for new cameras every certain amount of time. I can then turn that off. I can add a camera remotely through its IP address. And then I can also forget missing cameras. So the app will remember which cameras were connected last, and it'll kind of leave the information there. I can basically turn that off if I want to. And I've then got a refresh button here that allows me to refresh the connection manually. So I just pressed that by accident there. So it is now refreshing the cameras. And essentially, once they're then connected back up, you can then click on one of those cameras and it will then pop up. So I've got 2 cameras connected here, so I can just pop between those. I've got a Komodo and a Raptor here, and I can bounce between those 2 nice and easily. Now, this is essentially where things start to differ from Red Control, and this is the first panel. So kind of your connections, your FTP panel, and we'll come back to this at the end to kind of showcase these features working. But fundamentally, this is where you see all of the parameters and the controls over your FTP connection. Now, the next 2 sections that you see from here are basically your window panes, your customizable buttons. But what's also really cool here, as Mikael said, because of that customizable UI and the larger screens, I can come in and I can completely change the scale of my UI. So if I want a larger video feed, I want that to be much smaller just to follow those settings. So I'm going to do a nice big video feed there. I can see my connected cameras over here. So if I want to switch between them very quickly, it's a really nice process to go through. Now here I've got basically a custom layout established. So if I was doing an aerial job, I might want to have control over different parameters. Maybe if I've got an XL in there or an XL's in an aerial array, I want to control the ND. I want my ND control in here. Maybe I'm doing something with Komodo where I just want trigger and maybe some turnover settings and false color. I can customize all of those buttons here. And if you hover over any button, you'll see actually if I make this big, let's be a perfect use case of this scalable UI, there's 3 dots and a cross. So if I press the 3 dots, that will allow me to change that button to whatever I want it to be in that place. So I can then come and pick any of these buttons here. I can remove that specific button as well. So if I just come here and hover over, I can remove that button. But don't worry, that's not lost forever. If you come over to here, there's a camera layout button. I can then just reset to default layout and that button will come back. But I've actually made a preset here. So I've come in, there's a little cog wheel down here which I can press, and that will allow me to add any of the tools that I want. So if I wanted to put in a different layout, maybe I want to have my CDL toggle as well as my 3D LUT, I click and then I drag that button over into the UI, and I can put that essentially anywhere that I want. Now here I've got my pre-record, I've got my proxy record, I've got false color, so that will turn on as well, which is just really, really nice. And then if you want to save that, essentially these 2 pages are completely customizable. I can then save that as a layout and get back to that as quickly as I want to and have multiple layouts for the work that I'm doing. We then have a color panel here. Now this again is super cool. This takes it to another level beyond what the Red Control app can do. And again, Mikael will dive into this because it's super cool, but essentially you've got all of your color, you've got your preset options here, so you can make presets in here, save those and push them to the camera with these FTP features. If you come into here, we can enable our CDL values, have amazing control over them. This is the cool bit where you get mixing CDLs and mixing LUTs, which for the DITs and the DPs out there, this is really cool, being able to mix CDLs and LUTs in real time on set and push them to camera. So we'll come back to that later. We've then got our audio controls, so anything you want to control with the sound levels, monitoring them. If you're a DIT and the sound guy hasn't given you a audio feed to listen to, but he's giving it to camera, I can turn on the audio stream and then get that coming through in real time, just so I can get an idea of what's going on set, and maybe who's chatting badly about me as a DIT. Next up, we've then got the focus control section. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly switch back over to the Komodo here just to show this. So essentially, if you have a RF lens attached, this will allow you to, if I just cycle through these, get that to come back up. There we go. I can essentially have control over the lens there, which is really, really nice. I can set my mark. So if I want to set a mark here, for example, set a mark there. Those of you with Red Control Pro, with Red Control, or if you used Full Control previously, you will be familiar with this, which is super, super nice. But what's really nice is that we have this create disk function now, which I really, really like. So if I come to, where is it, shutter, I do create disk. I've got a disk created with all of the variables that I might want. If I go to Iris as well, it will basically go through and create all of the stops for the lens that I might need, and I can go between those as opposed to having to add those manually. So this is a super cool feature I think is new just for this app. It wasn't in the free app, so I'll actually go through and create that disk for you. So I'll just let that finish up now, and then I can very easily get to any Iris point. It does the same for focus as well, so I can kind of come through and get exactly to 4 if I want to, or kind of come to 8. Again, just so many cool features that Mikael's put so much time into. But I think, Mikael, I think the coolest thing that is new, some people will see app face detect. So I think, Mikael, if you just want to give us a little lowdown on what this new feature is that's also coming to the Red Control app.
Yeah, so this new feature is just the in-app face detection. So it will not work without the app being connected, but it will be in the Pro app, but also in the free iPhone and Android app starting today. And we decided to put it in as a gap stopper until it will be fully working in the camera. So if I turn this face detect on here in my UI, and then let me turn on the SDI, and then you see as I move my face, the camera will follow my. If you switch to the other camera, just so they can see the image full screen, yeah, as I move around, you can see the green box is following me here. And if I kind of take a photo, and then it should follow up and try to focus on.
So cool.
Yeah.
Right?
So
How amazing is that?
it doesn't drive the focus itself. It's just driving the box, and the camera will do the focusing. So depending on your lens and the type of motors that you have and the lighting conditions, it might not be a perfect solution, but it will help in all those situations where you have
I mean, this is perfect for those kind of sit-down interviews where maybe you've got a couple of cameras that you want to just set the app down and you can't go over because you haven't got a focus puller for this kind of low-budget interview you're doing. So I think for those kind of situations, I'm excited to use this already. I know, Cleigh,
I know. I'm like, I should have been using this today. Keep focus on myself.
And there's only 2 options in the app. One is to have the app track the first face that it finds and try to stick on this face, even if another one comes in. And the second option is to track the last one. So every time there's a new face, it will jump to that one. So there's the 2 options that we decided to have without going into, more complex thing where you can select which face you want. I mean, it's like a pretty simple feature to see how it works, and then maybe we'll grow from there. And not right now, but I just need to push the app on the store. But if you check in 1 hour or 2, it will be in the free app also for you to try. It's inside the focus page. I mean, the lens page. Inside the tools, you'll find something called App Face Detect Autofocus.
Awesome. That's
yeah,
great.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this panel here is just so cool. So those of you familiar who have used it on Red Control and then also Full Control, you've still got all the same functionality with your rack speed, your min, your max. You can set marks and ramp between those. So super, super powerful page for those that kind of would really benefit from this. We've then got a menu tab. So again, if you just want to go in and change anything with the camera, you can do that here as well. But what's really nice is that essentially you can also sticky a menu to the side as well. Because we've got this customizable UI, we can have our menus constantly open if we want them to. So if we need to go in, format a card quickly, or go in and change a deeper setting that's a bit trickier to get to, or that we haven't got a button assigned to, it's just nice to be able to sticky a menu there as well. Some of the other options we have across here at the top, we have our screen separate window. So if we just want to have a separate window, so if I just want to show the video here, I can come in, I can turn on overlays, I can magnify. Sorry, I won't show you my face there. You can magnify there as well. So if you want to separate out the window, you want to have some other documents open while you're working, you can separate that out from this display, which is super nice. We then also have a rotate option. So if you're doing underslung Steadicam or something like that, you can flip and flop the image as well. If you want to do, so if I do rotate 180 and then flip and flop, if I'm doing social media work, if I want to have it sideways as well, I can do that all through here as well, not having to rotate a monitor or flip something around. So that's just super, super nice. And then essentially at that point, we'll come back to the FTP a little bit later on. But I think at this point, we'll move on and start looking at the real awesome bit, and that is the multicam control.
Yeah, this is something that I'm super excited about. It's how I've been using the app largely. And so if we cut to the area where we can see my iPad here, you can tell I'm in this original single camera mode. I can pop out, and now I'm seeing all the different cameras that I have in my network right now. Something that's really good to note is that the best way to do this is to do ad hoc mode, the best way to do this is infrastructure mode, and you can get around it by using ad hoc mode. But what I'm doing currently is I've got a router that's dedicated just to spreading information with these cameras. I'm not connected to the internet on it. It's just set up so that I can log all the cameras and connect them to that router and then use that to drive this interaction right here. So as you can see, I can go in and I can select my different cameras. I can go in and give us an easy readout. I've got them labeled with colors, and Mikael's going to show us how to do that in a moment here. But this is basically the area of the app that I've been playing in the most because of things like today, where I have the ability to quickly jump between my different cameras and really, really get the best use out of this app. So Mikael, why don't you kind of show us how we get this set up for these multiple cameras?
Yeah. So by default, when you connect cameras to this Red Control Pro app, they will automatically connect. There's no connection or disconnection, and they always connect, and they always show up as small camera vignette there. I mean, you can disable the video stream if you have like 50 camera and you don't want to clutter your network, but otherwise you will have the video preview, and you can like toggle different view if you want to see your histogram, and that's your view when you don't dive into the individual camera control, but you can just see the array that you created. And if for some reason you have more camera on set that you want to separate from the array, you can just take this Komodo, for example, and tell that this one should not stop with the other one. So there's a small button at very upper right that lets you keep it connected. So I can still connect to that camera, but it's been soloed, so it won't stop. If I start recording on my camera there using the big red button, it will not record on the separate camera. So just to show you how it did, because sorry, I got my iPad connected there, so the iPad detected that I had the multicam running. Let me turn the iPad off, otherwise it will interfere with the Mac. So I can have my camera separated as a solo camera if I need, or I can include it in the array. So right now I've got my 3 camera included, and by default there will be no settings synchronized between the camera, because we don't want, when you connect camera, to have the settings change because they're just connected. So by default there's nothing that will change on your camera, and the only settings that will be synchronized is the start stop with this big button here that I just pressed that lets me record, and then you have like a small button that will show you the media status, so you can see how many clips you have, or how many drive space you got on all your cameras. And then you got one that lets you take multiple snapshots of each camera. Those are all the multi-camera buttons that you can again customize. You can remove some, add more buttons. There's one that lets you see full screen with all your cameras, a grid, and there's different thing if you need to play back all the cameras simultaneously. There's a dangerous button there that's called eject media, and another one called secure format that lets you
My favorite ones.
do dangerous thing with your app. But luckily, if you click on them, nothing will happen. There's a small lock at top that lets you unlock the. I mean, you can remove them if you don't want them, but you can also unlock them. And like for 10 seconds or something, you have the opportunity to click to do the action. Otherwise, as soon as you drag your mouse out of the area, it will lock again. So if I want to secure format all the card, I can click, and then there's another layer of confirmation that all camera will show me the notification that I can disable for now on all 3 cameras. So that's the part when you have all those buttons to do some action on the rig. And then if you want to synchronize, like for example ISO, you just go into that small menu there, you select exposure ISO, and it will add the ISO value there. So as soon as I click on that and change it to 500, for example, all 3 cameras will synchronize and change to 500. So now that settings is set, and the concept we have in the app is to have one camera, which is the primary camera, and the other one will be replica. So right now my Raptor is my primary camera. That's why it has this small star icon there. And the Komodos there, they have the small link chain saying that they will be a replica and they will just follow the Raptor. And how do I set those settings to tell the app that the Raptor is the main camera? It's just by going into the first tab of the app, and you've got the name of the camera that you can change here, and you got the letter, the slate ID letter, and the one with the IS letter will always be the primary. So in my case, I've got A assigned to Raptor, and the Komodo has a K, and the Komodo, the other one has M letter. So as long as they're A, B, C, D, whatever, or as long as the primary camera has the IS letter, it will stay as your main camera, and the other one will follow. So if I change the settings on the Komodo, like if I want to change my ISO there, it will tell me that the ISO is linked to the other one with this red color showing me that it's linked to the red Raptor. And I mean, I can still change it if I want. I can change it on the UI. I can change it in the app. But if you see, the app will tell me it's not synchronized there on the bottom left, and then it will synchronize again and put all camera to 800 and tell me that the status of this link parameters is all good now, because it always tries to keep that link. If I need for some reason to disable that link for a moment because I want to change something and I have different ISO, I don't need to remove it. I can just like click on the small link here to have it disabled or re-enable it. And when it's disabled, then it's easy to kind of assign different values to each camera. You see they're no longer linked anymore. And again, you can have different ways to add buttons there. You can do it like I showed you with this small menu there, but you can also call the big menu there where you have all your buttons again, and you can search and say I need to add the felt color, for example. So if I tap felt, I can see the felt color enable. I can drag it in that area, and when it's there, then the felt color will also be synchronized. As soon as I click on it, it will enable it on all 3 cameras simultaneously, and then I can turn it off.
Right.
So one of the cool things I'm seeing here, Mikael, is the fact that you've assigned a color for each camera as well, and it's changing the color of the UI as well, which I think is super cool for discerning which camera you're actually working with visually. As you know, red was A, B is kind of usually B camera, and from there. So you want to show how we can set that up?
Yeah, we don't have that in the camera directly, as I think the GXL has a way to set the color on each camera. But here I'm using the frame guide, and the first frame guide 1, as a reference to pick the accent color for the app. So the Raptor has a frame guide with a red color assigned, and the Komodo has a frame guide with a green color assigned, and the second Komodo has a frame guide with a blue color assigned. So even if the guide is off, it will keep the color. It's just you don't need to display the guide, but just setting those different colors, which usually you do on set anyway, because it's useful when you have multiple cameras to be able to identify quickly which one is which. So the assistant will put different colors on the different cameras on the guides. So the app is using the first guide, the guide number 1, and get that color and the whole UI of this individual camera. So when you're in the menu, this one will be mostly green when you go into the menu, and the other one will be blue.
That's so amazing. And it's really important to know what different cameras are having different settings when you're not applying the same setting across all of your cameras. So if we want to show my iPad here for a second, one thing that I really like, that I feel like is really beneficial, is the idea that if I've got cameras within my multi-camera setup that can't do the function of another camera. So right now I've got a Komodo in line with these other cameras, and I'm setting my project record format as one of the parameters that I want to link across cameras. You can see here that it's warning me, hey, my Komodo can't do that, right? So my Komodo is not able to go into 8K. So we're either going to have to default and pull everything back to 6K, or we're going to have to accept that that's not actually in line. And it gives you a great big red uh-oh warning that says, hey, something you've decided to apply across all the cameras isn't actually possible to apply across all the cameras. And I think little safety features like that are built in, as well as the, making sure that you're not formatting your media, all that stuff, are great insights to a shooter actually creating this app, right? Someone who actually uses the cameras, creating an app for other people who use the cameras is the best, in my opinion.
I mean, I think one of the really cool things that we'll see as we kind of start to go through the next few sets of features is how this application is bringing a lot of functions that you would usually use different apps for. The FTP control, you would have to have like a FileZilla or a dedicated FTP app. If you wanted to control cameras remotely, that was usually something like a Redmote, or you'd have to have a specific tool that would be controlling all of the cameras together. And then also for the color stuff we'll look at, again, you'd have a dedicated application for that as well. And that can just speed all of this up. And I think that kind of tees us up very nicely, Mikael, to show us the amazing color capabilities that we have within the app. Because I mean, as a DIT, this gets me excited.
Yeah, and the last thing about this panel here is that you can, as the same for the button layout, you can set different configuration. Like if you want to clear everything and start from scratch, it's very easy. If you want to restore the last one, like a kind of undo, you can do it from this menu, and you can save and recall different configuration that you want to use on set. So this one will have the color temperature, tint, ISO, shutter speed, and the IPP2 settings, for example, with the Fels color that we saw before. And it's very easy to kind of have different setups that you want to use depending on which kind of array you control or which setup you have on set. So you can really prepare different thing for that. And the last thing with the multicam is that you can also display multiple camera simultaneously. So if I click on the very top left here, where we have like 3 active cameras, I will get my layout with the 3 cameras, and there I can monitor the 3 simultaneously, and like again adjust the interface if I want to. And I can, depending on the iPad, if I've got a vertical layout, it will like stretch it will always try to do its best to be able to use the screen relay step that you give to each camera to be able to display the buttons, scaling them all the time so they are visible at all time. And you can just see one. And I think if you shift click on the Mac, you can see 2 together, and then you can hide the multicam panel if you want to just see 2 cameras there. I mean, there's different ways to play with the UI.
Amazing. Yeah, and
awesome.
So when you're,
I think, sorry, Cleigh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, when you're playing with that stuff, and as you go in and you're looking at these different cameras and you want to apply like a global look across them, or you maybe want to take the LUT that you've been given and make sure that it's working right, why don't you kind of walk us through that portion of it where there's CDL and LUT action going on? Because like Johnny said, that stuff's really exciting.
Yeah, so let me show you. So when you go into a individual camera, like I will check the Raptor now and go into this 4th panel there called layout. Again, all those buttons, you can always customize them. Even this one in the focus menu, it's just in the menu there, you cannot customize, but everywhere else, if you want to add more stuff in your audio panel, you can. Same for this one, it's called color controls, but you can add anything you want in there. It's just the default. I think those one you cannot delete, the first 3 ones, but then the rest you can like rearrange as you want. But if we go to presets, for example, then you can see the 3 areas that we have in the in this panel. Let me just remove and make it bigger. Okay, so it's the same for CDL presets and LUTs. We have like 3 panels there, and I remove the sticky menu on the side so we have a bigger view. There's one called user presets or user CDL or user LUTs. It's all the files that will live on your hard drive or on your computer, on your iPad. So this is like a library of presets that you can have inside your device, and whenever you connect to a new camera, it's easy to send the same CDL or the same LUT or the same preset that you have. So it's like a storage library for all your files, which is local to the device. It will stay in the device. And then with the FTP feature enabled, you're able to take a preset that is in camera. For example, this camera has different presets. So the fact that I can connect to the camera through FTP lets me read what's inside the preset file, which is not possible on the regular version. So I can see that this one, for example, is a guide preset. This one is a preset with like frame rate and different settings. So I can very easily copy that settings to my user preset, so I can keep it there and send it to another camera later. And if I want to take this frame guide preset, for example, I can also copy it there, and I can just modify something if I want to. I can click on edit a copy, and it will like duplicate this preset and let me add more parameters or change the one that I choose into this preset. So there's a whole new layer of stuff that you can do if you want like add a shutter to that guide layer to be able to make sure that the shutter always stays at 180 when you apply it. You can save it.
That's great for sharing across camera teams and with your friends that are DPs. I mean, we're a great big community of filmmakers, and it's amazing to have the ability to share those things between us.
So I just renamed this preset, and then if I want to share it, I can just click the share button and choose AirDrop, mail, messages, or whatever. And if I want to email it to you, it's just one button. I click, it will create me a new email. Oops, it went to the other screen there. But I can just like give it a name and say guide preset.
Amazing. Yeah, great for productions, for moving quickly, but also making sure that you've got the cameras set up just how you want them, and being able to do that, once again, in this format where it's so easily usable and shareable.
Yeah, and the same way you can import your presets or your CDL from the drive or from iCloud or from whenever it is on your iPad, on your Mac. So there's one button to share, one to import, and that's something you will find on all these 3 panels. So this is the user presets. We won't go too much into that, but the CDL and the LUTs just have the same features. So if I go to the LUT, then I have my user LUTs again. I've got my in-camera LUTs. I've got my on-media LUTs. And then I've got like what I call the mixer on the left side. So if I take, for example, on my computer, I've got like more LUTs from the Red Creative LUTs package. So I can take some LUTs, just drag them into my user library. So then they will stay inside this library forever, and I will have those LUTs that I move around. If I move my computer around, I will always have those as a kind of base library in my my machine. If I want to take one LUT and send it to the camera, I just need to press this button and it will upload it. But before uploading it, maybe I want to modify a LUT. For example, I will take this which one? Let me take another one. I take the black and white LUT here, and I like it, but I think it's too much, and I want maybe to have like a kind of bit of color in there. So the LUT mixer will let me like tame down this LUT from 100%, which is this version there, to 0%, which is there. I can select any variation in there, and if I click on it, it will just like select this version as the new LUT. So it will mix 2 LUT together, so I can do this with any number of combinations that I want. So I can take this one and mix it with another one, and until
this is just super cool, because in some situations where there's a lot of DPs that I worked with where they'll have a LUT that kind of underexposes by a stop. You get into one situation where that's a little bit too heavy. Can I make a change to that real quick? By being able to adjust that kind of transparency there, you can very quickly do a quick modification to it, while maybe you then try and do your daylight or readjust that LUT in Resolve or kind of POM forward or something, be able to make those changes on the fly, or be a bit experimental. And the DP's like, that LUT from yesterday I really liked, but also this one, can we see how that kind of blends together? I just think it just expands upon that creativity, being able to mix them together. It's just cool.
Yeah, and as an editor, to be able to get those files, to get that in a sidecar file as I get the R3Ds is such a value, to not have to go chasing down people saying, hey, it seems like in this scene you exposed a little differently. Were you mixing the LUT with something else? Did you dial things back? And I never got that one. I'm like calling DPs, calling camera assistants and DITs. Like, I think all of this, being able to live with the R3D files in a sidecar is amazing, and is going to speed up production all the way through post.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the really cool things about the CDL stuff as well. So traditionally, you would be monitoring your kind of CDL down the pipelines. The DIT might be monitoring a log feed and then sending a feed out back to the monitors, maybe a camera return feed for the DP with the CDL that they want. Now, if there's a modification that needs to be made, even if they've got that CDL installed, you can push that CDL back to the camera, make that change. It lives with the file. And as Cleigh said, it can just speed things up really, really nicely. I know, Mikael, there's some other exciting bits that are in the pipe for kind of CDL control, but just that speed and having it with the file, I think, is the most important bit, as you said, Cleigh.
Huge. And like and I mean, it goes back to that sharing element as well. So if we're making this adjustment on A cam and we've made this small little minute thing, we're living in an environment where that can easily be populated to B cam without grabbing a mag and downloading something and adding it in later and all this different stuff. You avoid some of this misalignment. You avoid problems both on set and in post. People looking at Video Village going, why is this angle not right? Why does this one not look like this one? Like, I think all of those things are a huge benefit. And why don't we can dig back into the CDLs a little bit. I think we got a little bit more time to look at them.
Yeah, the CDL is based on the same principle, where you can have like your look here. You can, of course, do it from this UI, like if you want to go red and go. So this is very strong here as I move my mouse, but there's obviously a different scale. So this is the large version. I can go into coarse, medium, fine, super fine. If I go super fine, then you will see that I can do much more subtle adjustment. And I think there's even an ultra fine or something like this. So you can really dive in a different color look that you want here. You can use the keyboard if you want to add a value there, and you can use those sliders. And when you got something that you like, you can switch to the look library there, where you can obviously save it to the user library. And then you can again mix it. So right here, it will let me mix it with the clear LUT. So I can click on this version to make it 50%, for example, and think maybe it's better for what I need. But let's try to mix it also, this version, with this red LUT here. So I can select with the palette button and then put it in the mixer. So now I've got the mix from this half version that I did before. I can mix it a bit with the red, maybe 20%. And I can see it both on the preview there and on the image, because the LUT is applied immediately. It's not like the LUT. The CDL is applied immediately. The LUT you need to upload to the camera to be able to apply it. But the CDL can be applied directly to the camera, so you can see whatever look you got there. And when you're happy with the version that you're getting, you can send it to the camera, or again share it, or push it to other camera. You can synchronize also the CDL parameters in the multi-camera panel, so they will always be linked together between all the camera. And I can upload that CDL that I just did to the camera if I need to, but I don't really need, in fact, because it's already applied to the camera with the CDL being a live modification to the file. And if I want to go back, there's a small history there where I can just go back to the different version that I did. If I preferred finally to do a different direction, I can go back in time with the history panel there and choose another direction for that look that I'm trying to.
That's awesome. And I think this kind of bleeds very nicely into what we're kind of talking about, the FTP functionality as well, kind of rounding off kind of how this app kind of brings everything really into kind of one place. So I'll just kind of get my share up here. And really, when we're working kind of in this environment, as Cleigh was talking about at the beginning, your network environment is very important. If you're on a patchy network or you're running in ad hoc mode, things like downloading media that we're about to talk about will kind of be very, very slow. So for kind of the most robust connection, as we're showing at the very start of the session with some of the images of the customers who have set the app up, some of them will be hardwiring. So I'll just kind of run through that kind of FTP panel and explain why kind of hardwiring is kind of really, really important. So in this FTP panel, we have our confirmation of our settings. So it will confirm that we have the ability to change settings and also access the media. So in the side of your camera, you can go to the FTP functions and enable or disable the ability to read the media. So from a security standpoint, you can't do it through the menus. So if you actually come in and go into your communication and there's no FTP menu in here, because FTP settings can only be accessed on the camera, so no one can kind of turn that on in the app and start downloading your media. You also have the ability to define where your files are going to be stored. So if you are downloading presets, LUTs, and media, this is the folder where those are going to be stored. You then have an upload option as well. So this is really cool. So outside of the CDLs, LUTs, and presets, you can also upload firmware files. So if you're prepping for a big job, you've got 6, 7 cameras, there's an update that's just come out. At the moment, you have to put it on a card, put it in a camera, update, remove it. The firmware is wiped from the card on the laptop, download it to the next camera. But with this, you can simply go upload file, and then essentially at that point, select the firmware, and it will upload straight to the camera. There's no need to even have a card in the camera, which is just super cool. So it's stored locally on the camera, and then you can just bang, 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 update all of them. Just save yourself so much time going around through all of these cameras. When the most recent update came out, I used this feature and updated all of our stores Raptors. And then when there was a Komodo a while back, I updated that as well. So super, super nice feature. You then also have the ability to download a log file, so in the event there is ever an issue, you haven't got to go over to the camera, get in the way of the DP or setup. You can download a log and then send it to our support team if you need assistance. Now, this is where the stuff starts to get exciting, auto media download. Now, on the vRaptor and vRaptor XL, you have a USB-C port that can support up to 5 gigabit Ethernet, which is around 400 megabytes a second download. So if you're wanting to download your RAW, or in this case, the proxy files from the camera, you can do that over the network. Over Wi-Fi, as you'll see in a second, I'm connected over Wi-Fi, you'll kind of see how slow it is. But if you need to turn things around, Cleigh's a very demanding editor, so he wants to get those ProRes files very, very quickly and start editing them. I can be getting those files, checking them, and then just pinging them over to him one by one as I kind of want to, which is just super, super cool. So you can essentially enable, disable, and choose if you want only the proxies to be enabled. We then have,
forget dailies. Let's go with hourlies, Johnny.
So then we have our menu structure. So this is just showing the files that are in my local folders. So if I don't want to go out to Finder and check what's in there, I can view that there. And then I've got a file transfer panel, which will tell me the status of my file transfers. So I've enabled the auto media download. I'm then going to go and actually turn over for 3 seconds here, just so you can see what happens. I then cut that clip, and then instantly that then starts downloading. So that will connect to the camera. We then have one clip, boom, that's downloaded. We've got the clip. We've then got the LUT that was associated with that as well. And then we're just waiting for the download of that ProRes file. Oh no, actually I didn't even have ProRes proxy turned on. So let's go for take 2 on that. I'll do another little record there as well. And then when that's done, I thought that went a little bit quick. I was like, that's quicker than I was expecting. So we'll do attempt number 2. There we go. So 36 megabytes over the network. That's now downloading. And you can see that this is really where having a hardwired 5 gigabit Ethernet connection. There's from Sabrent and QNAP, they do 5 gigabit Ethernet adapters. You can either go straight into the back of a Mac Studio or go into a 10 gig network and then into something like a MacBook on set. So I'll just let that finish up. And then what's then really cool is I can then go to my desktop and then I go into, I'll just close out that, sorry. I can then go in here and then VRPB, media, you can go in here, go into my second clip, and I can then play that clip that we had literally 2 seconds ago. I can get that to Cleigh straight away. So really, really powerful stuff. Super cool. And then, yeah, just an awesome feature. So yeah, I can stop the share there.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so great. And actually, for reference, James, if you want to pop into my my close-up here, if you did need to enable FTP, you'd be looking at going to communication, selecting communication, and then you can see FTPS shows up in that menu right here. Oh, got a little cable in the way. But yeah, so that's another great. You can come back to me. It's an amazing way to increase the usability of the camera, to increase speed on set, to get to editors quickly and get projects turned around even faster. And like that for me is just like a great way to illustrate what's amazing about this app. Is it's just such a multi-tool. It gives you all these different functions that you'd be getting from different apps in the past, rolled into one thing for a really reasonable price for when it comes down to it. And I'm so excited that you were able to join us, Mikael, because like watching you develop this all the way back from full control to where we're at now, it's amazing. It's like it's truly a treat for us camera operators.
I mean, this also isn't something that we're kind of leaving as is. So I know, Mikael, you've got loads of really exciting ideas of things that you kind of want to bring to the app as well. So I don't know if there's any little snippets of some of the stuff that you're working on just to kind of show that, hey, this is going to be updated perpetually on one license as well, no subscription model.
Yeah. I don't know if you can see on my desktop, I got some tools like the tangent panel or the Stream Deck. I know it's very popular with the DITs. So I guess at some point I will be adding the tangent support for the CDL and also Stream Deck for shortcuts. So you'll be able to switch cameras or toggle different actions without using the mouse. And just to make it clear, the two apps, the iPad version and the Mac version are exactly identical, except that some stuff like drag and drop a button you cannot do on the iPad yet. You need to kind of just select the button, but you can still customize the UI, but you cannot just drag and drop. And all the features are there. You can like do the multicam from the iPad. That's all the photos that you've shown at the beginning of people using the app for 360 arrays and stuff like that. They all use the iPad version. And the Mac version, the only thing that's on the Mac version that's not right now on the iPad is having the ability to do this 5 gigabit Ethernet. So that's why we didn't enable the auto download feature on the iPad, because you're limited in drive space and in connectivity. So you can still download a file if you're shooting like ProRes and you want to download a clip. You can do it because the FTP feature is there, but we decided that this feature would be more suited to having a.
You'll fill up an iPad real quick if you start downloading some raw R3Ds. I think, Mikael, you've still got, there you go, got your open shoulder shot on. But I guess at this point, we can open it up to some questions that we've had throughout the session. So we've got a few minutes here at the end, so please do fire some over. So limitation on the devices I can use. It runs on Mac, going back to Big Sur, I think, which is Mac OS 11. It runs on Intel and M1, M2 Max, so it's native for both those processor. And regarding the iPad, I think it runs on any iPad. I mean, any iPad that can install iOS 14, which is like 2 generations we know on iOS 16. I mean, it's releasing this month, so we can install on 16, 15, and 14. So as long as your iPad can do iOS 14, then you should be able to install the app. It doesn't mean but then also, if you own multiple iPads as well, you can still have it on. It's not tied to one Mac and one iPad. So if you have, so basically, it's your iCloud account, isn't it, Mikael? As long as the device is signed into the iCloud account.
Yeah, it's like any other app that you can install on different devices. And obviously, I haven't tested with a 50 camera myself, so I don't know. I mean, theoretically, the UI will work with 50 cameras. But of course, if you take a very old iPad and you start, I mean, the mine is not even an M1, and it runs very fine with 3 cameras. And the people who've been testing it did like 8 cameras on set with an iPad, and there was no problem even with the video feed on. So I don't see it as a
the problem's going to be if you're looking at multicam mode, seeing what's going on once they get so small. Even on an iPad, right? You get 8 in there, and you're like, "Wow, what's that little square? Which camera is this again?"
And regarding camera, it works with Raptors, Raptor XL, and the Komodos, but unfortunately, the protocol is very different for the DSMC2, so we are not able to kind of control those camera. We don't have the FTP, we don't have the video feed, we don't have all those features that makes this new generation of apps what they are. So
Yeah.
full control still works on the older app, but on the older cameras, but this new generation of apps are only for the GSMC3 or whatever it's called.
So I think I just saw another question pop up there. Oh yeah, Mikael, another one for you there.
I let you do this one.
Oh sure. So at the moment there's no plans for Android or Windows versions. In speaking with Mikael and how he got this app, it used Swift UI. So I think you spent a year from scratch building this app from the ground up. And one of the benefits of it being Mac and iPad compatible is that the code base can easily switch and allowed us to basically take the Mac OS app, which was primarily designed to then get it onto the iPad. And we really want to focus on bringing as many features to the Red Control Pro app as well. Spend that time expanding the features, bringing those tangent functionality, bringing the deck link functionality, and some of the other cool bits that are kind of in the pipeline that Mikael's currently thinking about. But also one of the things is that typically we found when we're researching the app and kind of looking at the user base is that for the primary customer, the arrays, the aerials, those kind of things, Mac is kind of the system, or iPads are the system that are primarily used in that environment primarily. So that is kind of where looking at the analysis of kind of where it's worth putting that development time into, it's just Mac is the primarily system that's used on set. So that's kind of where we wanted to spend the time and then expand the features out from there. So at the moment, nothing, but if there is a huge amount of demand for it, it could be a consideration in the future.
Yeah, if you look at apps on set, like most DIT, they will use a Mac. They have like LiveGrid or ColorFront. All those apps are Mac onlys. Unfortunately, it's a huge work to be able to do. PC. And
also, one of the things, Mikael, in speaking with you actually with Windows and Android is the sheer amount of different configurations, different CPUs, different processors, different versions as well. There's a huge amount of versions, and then what that means for then kind of maintaining that as well. It's just one of those things where Swift UI and kind of the Mac ecosystem is very good at kind of making those changes and rippling those out. So again, just from a maintenance standpoint as well. I think this next question.
It already has the multicam aspects, though. Everything works. What you've seen on the Mac works on the iPad, except like a few things like the FTP auto download or a couple of features like that. But
so I think the question here is in terms of you can still have multiple iPads connected at once. So if you wanted to have someone with an iPad viewing all 4 feeds, you could have a second iPad with all 4 feeds as well. You just want to make sure that your script continuity person doesn't go changing any settings while they have the app open, basically.
Oh yeah, I didn't read the whole question. Yeah, you can have multiple devices connected, but that's on your router. I think there's no limitation to how many devices you can connect to the same camera set. It's just that what I did earlier on is I had my Mac and my iPad connected, and the iPad was at the start-stop enabled on all cameras. So when I put one on solo, then the other one would interfere. So you need to make sure that if you want to use the Pro app on multiple devices, that the one will try to synchronize ISO, even though the other one would say that I don't want to synchronize my ISO. So you really need to make sure that it's set up properly, because if someone's come on set with another instance of the app, it can mess up your array and your settings that you've been.
Make sure you set a strong password on your network and your cameras, so no one can sneak on and start changing your settings. Just on this question that came up, so the app will need to be open because as it's app-based face detect, it needs to be seeing the image coming out of the camera, which also leads into the quality of your connection. If you're running over an ad hoc network and you're in an environment that has a lot of interference, and the image that's coming through is breaking up because of the interference, the app then tracking the face, if the face is here and then suddenly over this side of the screen, that jumping, will interfere with the experience that you have. So if you want to use this, either make sure you are hardwiring or make sure you've got a really robust infrastructure network. And then maybe it's also worth doing a channel scan as well, seeing what channels are heavily congested and tweaking your network to ensure that you're on the least populated channel as well.
Great call.
I see another question. There's someone asking that are we able to split the screen on the iPad to be able to have the app on half of the screen and another app open at the same time? And I think that's not possible right now. The app requires full screen, but I've played with it, and maybe at some point it's something that I will enable. But since the iPad is not as large as the Mac, when you do multi-camera and there's a minimum size, as you said, for some buttons, if you start splitting the iPad screen in half, then it makes... so right now I think it's disabled, but maybe it's something I should look into and see if we can have a split screen on the iPad in the future.
Wow. This has been such an amazing and informative session. I feel like we're starting to wind down, but here we go. We have one more question coming in. Yeah.
So, again, in regards to latency, it's so heavily dependent on the network setup that you have. So if you want the best environment for this, hardwired, Ethernet, routers, those kind of things. And then if you're working wirelessly, so I think all of us here have essentially been working wirelessly with the app. Check your connection infrastructure, have a good router that has good coverage of the space that you're in, and again, check for interference on the channels that you're on as well. That's how you can improve this. You can also change the antennas on the camera. It's an RP SMA connector. So actually on the two cameras that I have here, both of them have larger antennas on them, again, just to be able to spread that connection a bit wider and then improve that slightly as well.
So the ability to inject GPS data from iPhone, iPad into the camera R3D metadata, that was something I had on my full control iPhone app. So you could just enable the GPS on the iPhone and it would send as a perform metadata to the R3D file. It's not there yet in the app because, as Johnny said, we've focused on the Mac version first, and the iPad is kind of a byproduct of the Mac version. But again, that's something I should look into, and there's no reason that we cannot do it because I think the protocol now lets me send at least for lens data. So I need to see if I need to ask for a custom field to be able to input GPS in there. But technically it's possible, but it's not there yet. But that's the kind of feature. If we get this feedback, there's a email button inside the app where you can send some feedback, and then we'll sort this out and add the cool feature that we think are.
Awesome. Wow, it was such an informative session. Thank you so much for joining us, Mikael. I had a great time, and I'm really excited using this app, and hopefully everybody else out there gets the same amount of use and joy out of it that I do.
It's available on the App Store now, iPad and Mac. Just go search Red Control Pro, or if you already have the Red Control app, you can just tap on the developer, Red Digital Cinema, and you'll see the app there. You can download it straight away.
Yeah, and I need to push the free app with the update for face detect in there. So it will be live in a couple of hours. And, it's ready, but I just need to deploy in the different Android and Apple app stores.
See, you guys are hearing it first. Thanks for sticking around with us. All right. See you, everyone.
See you. Bye, everyone. Thanks.